Good afternoon. Today is Monday, November the 21st. Madam, this Committee of Finance, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is called to order. Madam Clerk, please read the roll.
Thank you.
Here.
President.
Here. Conwell. Harrison. Here. Casey.
Present.
Valencia.
Present.
Santana. Spencer. Present. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I am going to briefly turn over the gavel of this meeting to Councilman Kerry McCormick. And Madam Clerk, can you please recuse me and remove my name from ordinance number 1118-2022, as well as ordinance number 1204-2022. And please replace me with Councilman Kerry McCormick. I serve on the boards of the Greater Cleveland Sports Commission, and I also serve on the board of the Karamu House. Therefore, I am going to recuse myself from both of those votes, turn it over to Councilman Kerry McCormick, and I'm also going to leave the room. So I wanted to make sure that I'm on record for both of those. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. So we're going to proceed with ordinance 1118-2022. So if we can have our folks from the Sports Commission, please come forward. And anyone else that is presenting on 1118-2022, please also come forward at this time. Ordinance 1118-2022 by Council Members Hairston and McCormack by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Economic Development to enter into a grant agreement with the Greater Cleveland Sports Commission or its designee to provide financial assistance to organize and administer programs for marketing the city of Cleveland as a venue for sporting events, and to actively market the public auditorium as a premier site for hosting of major events. Director, we are going to start with you, and you can introduce and kick it off to your guests. Director, you've got the floor.
Through the chair of record and the council, I just want to introduce the staff from the Greater Cleveland Sports Foundation who are here to present their case, which I hope you guys will support. I have David Gilbert, Executive Director, and Rachel, I didn't get your title, and I really apologize for that.
Rachel Stensbacher, Vice President of Administration and Development.
Okay, yeah. So, as you know, the Greater Cleveland Sports Foundation is the organization that's responsible for marketing the city as a sports tourism destination, as well as planning events that are related to sports tourism, things like the Final Four, games, All-Star games. They help, promote the city as that type of attraction, as an ideal venue, and also coming up with new opportunities for promoting the city as a sports tourism destination. And for quite some time now, the city has given them an annual grant to support those activities. And what we're here today for is to have approval for the annual allocation of that grant. And that's, I think, $250K. So.
Thank you, Director. And do you have materials that you'd like us to hand out?
I have a few copies. Most of you have received these already, so we just brought a handful. I'm happy to provide more as needed.
Thank you.
Sure.
And then whoever's going to kick us off from the commission. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks all to everyone on council. Our organization has been around for a little over 20 years, and we've always had, thankfully, a wonderful relationship with the city. And what we do day in and day out is we compete on behalf of the city. We compete against cities from around the country, around the world, for the rights to host major events. Thankfully, Cleveland has maintained a position for many years now, and we have to fight hard every year to do it, as being one of the top cities in the country for the hosting of these major events. This past year, we hosted 10 national events, economic impact well in excess of $150 million. And what that means is that we use no multipliers. It's based on an industry formula. Now, a lot of that was attributable to the NBA All-Star Game, which was incredible. But those are dollars spent from outside of Cleveland into Cleveland Cleveland that otherwise would not have been here. And we're now in our 21 years of existence, we are at about $840 million in new direct dollars into Cleveland that otherwise wouldn't have been here. In addition to, certainly for so many of these big events, the NFL Draft, NBA All-Star Game, we're now 35 NCAA championships. They bring a lot of eyeballs on Cleveland from around the country and around the world. And what we're very proud of, we're a small, we still think very scrappy organization, but first and foremost, what we believe we mean to this community is return on investment. And our budget is about $2 million a year outside of events where money will cycle in and cycle out from money we raise, but our kind of the dollars it takes to run the organization, and the city is certainly a big part of that. And we know that year in and year out, the tax dollars collected by the city far exceed the investment in our organization. And most of all, like all of you, we're passionate about this city. And we know that your decision to fund us isn't about our passion, isn't about whether we're good people or not. It's, are we good stewards of those dollars, and do we bring more back to the city general fund than the dollars that are invested in our organization? And we know that the events that are hosted in town that we list are events that, if it were not for the Sports Commission, they would not be in Cleveland. We don't say the marathon, which is a wonderful event, takes place in Cleveland, and we list it. We don't have much to do with it. Every event you see in our quarterly reports, our annual reports, even things like NBA All-Star Game, well, it was a wonderful partnership with the NBA, the city. Our small nonprofit went out and raised the $5 million it took to fulfill the community obligations and put on that event. And so large and small, those events are if it were not for us, they wouldn't be here. The one other thing I'd mention, and I think many of you are aware, we also try to extend the reach of these events beyond the dollars, particularly with youth in our community. And we have a whole arm of our organization that does youth programming specifically around taking the assets of the events that come to town, be it Olympic athletes or being able to provide equipment and training and other things, and work largely with City of Cleveland rec centers to make sure that these events also have as much of an impact as possible on the youth in our community who may otherwise not have an opportunity to experience these kinds of events. So I'll leave it there and then open it up for any questions.
Thank you.
Nothing to add.
Awesome, thank you. Well, thank you so much, and I think for those of us who have been on council for a few years, we're very well aware of the great work that you do and the ROI that you bring into the city of Cleveland. So happy to have supported these in the past and to continue to do so. It's a worthy investment for the city. And just one question for the multipliers conversation. Tell me more about what you mean by that. You say you don't do multipliers, but does that, if I come to Cleveland for an event and I eat at Siam Cafe, you're not counting that lunch at Siam? Tell me a little bit more about.
Yeah, great question. So, one, the way we calculate economic impact, there is a formula that our National Association utilizes that has been adopted, so it's apples to apples in a community. And there's lots of different inputs related to visitor spending, and what somebody may spend in San Francisco might be a little different than Cleveland, might be a little different than San Antonio. But one of the things that there is an ability to add or not add is a multiplier. And what that is, so the lunch at Siam Cafe, every dollar spent there, if you were from out of market, would count. What some economists will put in as a multiplier to say those dollars trickle through the economy. So that line cook at Siam, who had a little bit of extra dollars put in their pocket because of that lunch or dinner, might have spent money on groceries or on dry cleaning or on other things. We'd rather be conservative, because if we had, say, $830 million, about $840 million over 20 years, if you had a 0.3 multiplier, all of a sudden there's another $250,000. If you make it 0.5, it's very easy, quite frankly, to play with the numbers. So what it does mean for us is we take a very conservative view of the economic impact that's calculated.
Got it. That's really helpful. So my meal at Siam and that tip, we're including that, but the fact that the waiter has an extra $20 in their pocket and they buy dinner that night is not, that's the
Exactly.
multiplier. I understood. Okay. Alrighty, opening it up for questions, I've got Councilman Brian Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, it's nice to know that you're tipping $20.
I used to work in the industry. I'm a good tipper.
Mr. Chairman, to our guests, first to Mr. Gilbert and your staff and the volunteers for the Greater Cleveland Sports Commission, I believe is the unfounded jewel of the city of Cleveland. I think that what you guys bring to the city of Cleveland, you don't get enough recognition for. And my question, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Gilbert is, with the economic impact that your organization brings to the city, which is unparalleled compared to any other organization in the city, the $250,000, I believe, is a small amount that the city should be contributing. So the question is that your ask, or is that what the city is offering?
Mr. Councilman, first, thanks for the comments. I appreciate that. It really is our ask, and over the years it's gone up a little bit. We have not, over the number of years, asked for more, and so I would say it really is our ask, and it's a discussion with the city administration, but it's not that we are told in any way. It's what our request is.
And Mr. Chairman and Mr. Gilbert, and I can appreciate your humbleness, but for the economic impact that this organization brings to the city, I think you should be asking for more than, and I don't think anybody would bat an eye on the amount of money that we could give you for what the city gets as a return of investment. So I just wanted to make that comment as well. And then I want to shift real quick to two other things. One is, I think it was last year, with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony, right? It was moved out of public auditorium and over to Quicken Loans, which means it went from the city facility to a county facility. Just in my humble opinion, Mr. Chairman, to the great, as much as you're involved in that, and to whomever else that's one event that needs to come back to public auditorium. That needs to come back to the city of Cleveland. And although I'm sure the resources were shared in some amount, that's just something that I think is personal to the city of Cleveland and maybe not so much the county. And I understand the economic impact with selling tickets and et cetera, but I just attended the induction ceremony in LA, and I can tell you that there is no comparison to that one to what we put on in Cleveland, right? And the way it was put on in public auditorium was very intimate, it was just a better ceremony, right? And when that event comes to Cleveland, it's an actual event, right? I mean, the city talks about it for months and for weeks leading up to it. When I was out in LA, it was just something else to do out there, right? Where there was 10 other things going around. But bringing that back to public auditorium, which is where rock and roll really started, and we don't have to go over the history of the performers who've performed on that stage, but that's one thing that we should really push to coming back to public auditorium. And then every year I ask you where we are, Mr. Chairman, to the director about getting something with disabilities in Special Olympics. So can you touch on that real quick?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Councilman. On the first one, I'm not really directly involved, and maybe an offline conversation, different thoughts on it, but I'm not really involved one way or another. I will say, as we all know, it's an incredible, cities the size of Cleveland don't get that many red carpet events, if you will. So whenever that's here, it's really something from an economic and I'd say an economic impact, but also just the eyeballs of the world that are on Cleveland. And in terms of Special Olympics in particular, there is a Special Olympics USA Games, takes place every 4 years. And over the last few games has really blossomed into an enormous event. You have the World Games every 4 years, and then you also have in the 2 years intervening, you have the USA Games. We sent actually a nice-sized delegation down to Orlando earlier in the year to view the USA Games, to have a presence there. It is something we are looking at. It's been awarded for 2026. They haven't started the bid process for 2030, but we are in fact, I was texting just this morning a guy named Jim Epperson, who works for Special Olympics International, interim right now in charge of the bid for that event. Very expensive event. The cost to put it on is probably somewhere around $20 million, although they have one national sponsor that for the unofficially for the 26 games, officially for 22, has put in half that. And we think if that's going to be the case, we think we are very interested. Raising $10 million is a big lift, more than we will have ever had to raise for any individual event. But for what the event is and what it stands for, so much more than sport, we believe there's a real opportunity to do that. So I think we are very much in the game in bidding on that event for 2030 and would be an absolute highlight event, knowing that you're very involved. Funny to let you know, my daughter just started coaching her Special Olympics soccer team in Columbus, so pretty excited about it. But we are very much in the hunt for that, and it would be, to me, a real highlight if we're able to get that.
Well, and Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Gilbert, thank you, and we can appreciate that. And I usually don't speak on behalf of all of my colleagues, but if there's anything we can do to help you in that bid for that event, I've been talking to you about it for a very long time now, but I think I can speak for all my colleagues, what we would do anything we could to help you get over the hump or to help you sell the city to make sure that we're able to bring that event to the city of Cleveland.
Thank you.
Aside from that, thank you very much for everything you do, and I look forward to our continued partnership with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Mike Polensek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleagues, and to David and the director and the folks here at the table. I too, I share some of Councilman Casey's questions and concerns, but I do want to say to my colleagues, I was here before the creation of the Cleveland Sports Commission, and since the creation, I think when I look at all the organizations that the city, quote unquote, has funded over these decades, probably this is the greatest return on the dollars that we have contributed toward any organization that I'm aware of. The money we put in, we get back. And I can't say that about a whole lot of other groups, about the money that we've put in over the years and to receive the return on there. So, David, as you know, I'm a fan of the Greater Cleveland Sports Commission. I think you've done an excellent job, you and your team, and you will continue to do so. My bigger question is this: how do we create more linkages when we have events in Cleveland with the neighborhoods, with our rec centers, with our parks and playgrounds? And then how do we, again, because it really concerns me when I look at the annual budget, and we're going to be dealing with that very shortly, the public hall, we lose money. We have to subsidize it every year. It's a millstone. Your thoughts or ideas or recommendations on what we need to do to get that place going once again. I can remember, again, due to my longevity and my age, I can remember when we had a circus there and we had the ice follies and the ice capades. And I saw my first Cavaliers game there in the day, believe it or not. But a lot of people say, at Cleveland Public Auditorium, yeah, I watched the Cavs play the Chicago Bulls there many, many years ago. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to figure out how do we get that jewel. Brian touched on it about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I totally concur with him. In fact, it's so insulting to all of us who worked so hard to get the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame here that they've taken away. Now they've added L.A. into the sequence here. So, we thought we'd go back and forth between New York. Now that's not going to happen. It's going to be New York, Chicago, Cleveland. And maybe they'll throw somebody else in there at the rate we're going. So at the end of the day, how do we get better linkages and tie-ins with city facilities and our kids and our neighborhoods? I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Thanks, Mr. Councilman. So a handful of thoughts here. I'll start with Public Hall. public call is a challenge. We love it. I mean, it is, you walk in there, and we bring customers in there often, their eyes just light up. I mean, there are very few places in the country like that. It's unfortunately, there are a lot of issues just with the mechanics and the systems at Public Hall. And every year, we'll host usually one or two or sometimes more of our national events at Public Auditorium. But the amenities in there that oftentimes certain events rights holders need, just locker rooms or things, they won't go there. I could speak because I also run Destination Cleveland, and we've been having some conversations with the city, and we've been trying to facilitate, and there are some early conversations with the city and with the convention center about somehow looking at operating them congruently. And I think some things like that can really help. Again, I can't speak to that, but I look at sort of what is being talked about with West Side Market, where, again, beautiful city asset, but there may be ways where it could be run to not have it cost as much money, and ultimately over time to make some of the changes that would make it more suitable for events. Again, it is spectacular, and we do use it often, and we'll continue to market it like crazy. But certain things, it can't be there because of the amenities.
Okay. Okay, so you in Destination Cleveland, you want it?
I wouldn't say we. So, what I would tell you is we want very much for long term that facility to have upgraded amenities that make it more usable for the customer. Okay. Obviously, it's not, we're not advocating one way or the other. There's dollars and all that, but it's just, unfortunately, it happens with an older facility.
Yeah. And I think that's something that, that needs to be discussed, and we're going into budget hearings. So I'm not even clear what entity runs the quote-unquote convention center. Because, when I was here and they sold us, they came over, that there would be this integration between the two. And we were going to benefit from this spillover from the convention center. It hasn't happened.
There's some. So the convention center is run by an authority that then that authority hires an operator, and the operator is a company called ASM Global. They're the largest operator of meeting convention facilities in the country. They're really good. I mean, we deal with them a lot. Okay. They're very, very good. I know they do work with the folks at Public Hall, and there are a lot of events, working on one right now, Pan Am Masters games, and we have others that use both, and we make sure that we sell them as a pair. Okay. And it's tougher for the operator because you have two contracts, two sets of caterers, two IT, all that kind of stuff. So more synergy operationally from a customer standpoint, would certainly make sense. And I do believe that a lot of those early discussions are starting to be had. Okay,
that's encouraging, because I think we have, I'm of the opinion in 2022 we have to do things differently. We have to think outside of the box. And in the old ways of doing things, it might have worked, again, when the circus was there, but it's not going to cut it anymore today. We need to do, so, should the authority take over the convention center? I mean, our Public Hall, should it be just one entity running both? I don't know. I'm open to that. I mean, I think we just have to do things differently. Yeah. I'm looking at the budget. We subsidize the golf courses. We subsidize Public Hall. We're subsidizing it. And yet, in our neighborhoods, what do we hear at our neighborhood meetings? We need our rec centers improved. We need our parks and playgrounds improved. We have all these other pressing issues and priorities. And we have to figure out how to make our facilities work more efficiently and more effectively. So again, I appreciate your comments, but my colleagues, this is a wonderful organization, and I can tell you without any fear, big difference since they've come on board. And again, David, thank you for what you do.
Thank you, Councilman, very much.
Thank you, Councilman. Additional questions on, Councilwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Councilman McCormick. Just a quick comment through the chair to Mr. Gilbert. It's great to see you here.
Same here.
And Councilman Polensek offered a little bit of perspective from his longevity, his long tenure. prior to the existence of the Sports Commission, how things worked in Cleveland. And I just wanted to offer a quick comment as still a newer member, that even as a new member of council, I said this during our DPS hearing, I felt really well informed about what the Sports Commission does and the impact it has. So somehow you're able to get quick uptake on bringing new members up to speed and informed about the impact. So please keep that up, because it is very useful and it is helpful to us. And I definitely feel that I could be an advocate for your work. So thank you.
Councilwoman, thank you. And I would just add, one, appreciate it, because we try hard to make sure that we inform. And I would just also make the offer, again, feel free, anybody, anytime, to reach out. If there are things you think we can help with, we're a small organization, but we try hard to tie to our neighborhoods. Again, we do it largely right now through rec centers, but we try to tie all the national events that we have into our neighborhoods. So just feel free anytime to please reach out.
Thank you, appreciate that. And I second the interest in having the conversation around further integrating the convention center with public auditorium. I think that makes all the sense in the world. So I hope that we continue that conversation. Councilman Conwell, comments on 11/18/2022?
Now, when you have open before you leave, I want to talk with him. I need his help on some things. This the man right here.
Would you like to talk to him offline or in committee?
I can talk about it in committee.
Okay, you've got the floor, sir.
All right, thank you very much. I like the piece, through the chair, that you're doing with the arts and what you mentioned about the arts. We've already opened up the airport. It was on the 18th. We had some bands playing there as people go in and out. I know that it's a shame you got the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame right over here, and the city is dead as it is. We need to have the arts here, and we're looking to create some art districts. Thanks to Cleveland City Council, we put $3.2 million aside. We're looking to have that discussion on the 28th during the Health and Arts Committee. But we need your support and help also. We need the arts in the library. We need you to help us champion the arts in the on the street. We got to bring the street arts back. We got to open it up at University Circle. It got to be like Austin, Texas. It have to be like New York City. When you feel the vibes in Cleveland through the chair, you feel rock and roll, but you don't hear it and you don't see it, but you feel it. And I need your help so we can continue to push this, and we put artists to work through the chair to Dad.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman. So this is more on the side of the other organization I run for, Destination Cleveland. If it's okay, I'm going to send you. Destination Cleveland does a huge amount of using the arts as a major promotional vehicle to bring people into town, and then also to get them all the information they need so that they are spending their money in the arts community. If it's okay, I'd love to give you more on, and have our team put together what we're working on right now, all related to promotion of the arts, and
Gotcha.
take it from there. Is that a good place to start?
Oh, that's cool, Beans. You got your person. You still have my cell number.
I sure do.
Call me. I know council going on recess. I'm not going on recess. I'll meet you after December the 5th. This is important that we blow this city up, because that's where it came from, the city of Cleveland.
Done. I'm a believer with you, so
All right.
absolutely.
All right. Need your help. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman, appreciate that. Councilman Harrison, this was approved by DPS. Any additional comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No additional comments. As we heard from the committee members here, who also sits on finance, that we heard this thoroughly in DPNS. The team represented well. They provided a lot of information, and we look forward to working with you all closer in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilman.
Thank you, Councilman. Any final comments or questions on 11/18/2022? Hearing none, 11/18/2022 is approved. Thank you. Please sign.
Thank you.
Thank you both. All right. Okay. All right. Excuse me. Okay. Next up, ordinance 1204/2022 by Councilmember McCormack by departmental request. Emergency ordinance to amend Section 2 of Ordinance Number 457-2022, passed May 16, 2022, relating to professional services to support the transformation of city recreation centers into trauma-informed neighborhood resource and recreation centers, and to develop and provide programs and activities. I think this is... Madam Clerk, and this was also assigned to myself from Councilman Griffin. Is that correct? We've got that noted? Okay. All right. I've got two chief directors, so whoever wants to start, kick us off.
Good afternoon, Chair. This is set to authorize us to spend $806,183 towards our expanded programs through the Office of Prevention, Intervention, and Opportunity. This is a part of the original budget that this council provided to us, and these are the additional funds that we're coming back to you to request we're able to spend to put more programs in our recreation centers.
Thank you, Chief. Would any of our other guests at the table like to add anything from an opening comments perspective? Okay. All right. So let's start with Councilman. Nope, this did not go to DPS. So, yeah, 1 second here. Okay. And Chief, do we have, so these are for our rec centers, for the resource and rec centers, and the funding will be used internally and externally with partners. For folks on the committee, you have a list of those partners on page 2 in the tablet. So can you speak a little bit as to why these folks were selected and kind of how that partnership works?
And I will turn it to Ms. Sherry
Thank you,
Ellery, who
Chief.
is our expanded program director.
Good afternoon, through the chair to the committee. All of these vendors responded to an RFP and were evaluated by teams based on what area of expertise they addressed. And so a number of these are ones that came before you before for an extension because we were unable to use the funding during the pandemic, the complete funding. So a number of these had extensions, and now we're almost to the end of that extension, and we want to enter into a new contract with them. One of them is an issue. The issue is we have photography and iConnect, which is for our seniors program, and a number of our recreation centers have requested those programs, so we need to add some additional funds to that so that we can have additional classes, additional sessions in photography and iConnect. And then some of these are renewals that we're ready to initiate. They were summer programs, Karamu House, Cleveland Police Foundation. The Next Gen is a youth kind of employment opportunity, and then Recess Cleveland. Those were all summer programs that we want to renew for this upcoming season.
Wonderful, thank you. And can you provide just a few examples of some of the programming that these folks are providing in our rec centers?
The Diversity Center, IJ, and the Cleveland Rape Crisis Center, those three organizations are working together to provide leadership training for our young women and FEM students, and that covers self-image. They talk about self-image. They talk about relationships with others. They address bullying, those kinds of things, leadership skills, civic responsibility. And they rotate. Each one is at a different center for each season, and then they rotate so that the young ladies and FEM students at each center gets a relationship with each one of these organizations.
Okay, that's great. Okay, I've got Councilman Polensek on 1204.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the administration. and who can never answer. I think part of the challenge that I have is that I'm not really clear how effective the programs are that are out in the centers now. Do you have any statistics or numbers of how many students or kids that you're coming into contact with, that you're servicing? And I got to tell you, I think the administration has done a very poor job of promoting what is there at the centers. I mean, most people don't know what's going on at the centers. And I think that if we are going to, if we heard this under the previous administration, that's, you know, we were going to transform the quote-unquote rec centers into resource centers and to provide all these additional ancillary services. I'm not really clear what's being provided or even how successful it is. So that's what I'd like to understand. Are there any numbers, anything you can provide to us?
Sure. Through the chair to the councilman, just as a reminder and a refresher, not only are there expanded programs in the recreation centers to support the expansion of their services around trauma-informed care, in addition to these expanded programs, which I like people to think about as out-of-school time programs for our youth, we also have social support specialists that are in the recreation centers. We are also supporting the recreation center staff with their own professional development and trauma-informed care training. As a matter of fact, we had a team of them for the first time engaging with the broader out-of-school time professionals in our city this past Friday when they participated in a symposium. And so the work is above and beyond the individual programs. It is also all the other cultural and professional development opportunities and additional staffing that are in the centers helping to support the transformation. We would agree that we have a marketing and communications challenge writ large here at the city in terms of getting the information out. And so there are a number of new things that we're doing to expand our reach, working more closely with the school system. That's something that this administration has really put a lot of focus and energy around since we've been here in terms of getting the word out through the schools about the work that's happening in the centers. And so those are things that we are addressing. We do have some numbers on this work. We can tell you that when the COVID interruption happened, it interrupted all of the work, which included these expanded programs. And since later in the summer, they've started to see an uptick in the number of people who are coming back to the recreation centers, and that is the home in which we provide these expanded programs.
So, Mr. Chairman, honorable colleagues, so you're increasing your amount to $2.6 million with this legislation. And so you touched a moment on marketing. So how are you getting your message across? How are you informing the citizens and the kids in our neighborhood of what's available at the centers?
Through the chair to the councilman, some of the new ways in which we're doing this, again, goes back to increasing our connection with the school district. The team are putting out robocalls, they're putting out posters and QR code sensitized things in the recreation centers. We're also working with the school district student advisory council to think more young in terms of how we could do a better job of connecting with young people by ways of social media.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman and my colleagues, my neighborhood, I have more students in parochial and charter schools than in public. What are you doing to message there?
Yeah. To the chairman, through the chairman, excuse me, to the councilman, that is a good point. We are starting to work with our chief of education to build relationships with the charter and parochial schools as well to figure out what the right communication streams are. We have started some of that already, for example, with Urban Community School, and myself and Ms. Ellery actually met with them earlier this year.
Okay. Well, Mr. Chairman, to my colleagues, that has to happen. We cannot ignore the charter schools, the parochial schools, the private institutions. For us to do so would be foolhardy. But all of us have newsletters. Why don't you put together a boilerplate, something for us to put in our newsletters?
Through the chair to the councilman, we actually have an example of something for you right now that we've been working on that is coming to all of you to put in your newsletters.
Okay.
And we have been working quite closely with Councilwoman Santana and Councilwoman Howes on thinking more creatively about how to build out a full calendar for each year so that information is shared not just more broadly, but more timely.
But I'm looking at this, I'm assuming this is just a draft, I'm assuming. But I think you need to develop one of these for each rec center. Because, you know, so when they look, because you have no locations on here. You have a website, but I've learned a long time ago in my own ward that, you know, not everyone is using social media. In fact, about a third of our population doesn't. They still want to read things. So they're going to pick up that newsletter and they're going to read it. They're going to look at it. So I need you to, Tiffany in our office develops our newsletter articles. You need to have something that is specifically driven for each of the rec centers, because you're just telling us now, you're telling us that these programs are only available in the rec centers, correct?
Through the chairman to the councilman, yes, all
Yes.
these programs are in the rec
Okay,
centers.
you need to develop a flyer for each rec center. So then, like Councilman Hairston and myself, and we share Collinwood. And then myself, Councilman Hairston, and Councilman Conway, we share Glenville. So you need to develop a form so people can see what's at each center, and specific, if there's times, dates, days that it's not available. And I'd say to get it to us as soon as possible, because I'm developing a newsletter right now. End of year newsletters, as many of my colleagues are. We're developing them right now, or end of this year, or starting early in January. So something to us as soon as possible would be very helpful. Mr. Chairman, just finally, I think communications, and to the finance director, communications is very important here. So we can plow all the money we want, but if our folks don't know about it, and our kids don't know about it, it does us no good. And so we can fund all these groups, and I'm sure they're happy with the funding, but it's not going to be of any benefit to our kids and our neighborhoods and our families. We've got to create that integration. We've got to close that link. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Polensek. Councilman Brian Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to our finance chief, where is the money coming from? Is it coming out of recs, or is it where's it coming from?
Through the chair to the councilman, these funds are part of the annual operating appropriation to PIO in the budget. The $2.7 million of, I believe it was contractual services, was appropriated by council in March, and this is coming from that amount.
And again, Mr. Chairman, to the chief, can you remind us what PIO is?
Mayor's Office of Prevention, Intervention, Youth.
Opportunity.
Yeah, opportunity for youth and young adults. I got it.
Okay. All right. So this is coming out of their fund. It's not coming out of Parks and Recs, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And prevention, the PIO, is that geared toward just youth, or is it geared toward all ages?
Through the chairman to the councilman, PIO is focused primarily on youth and young adults, but as Sherry mentioned, we also, based on neighborhood, have some resources to support senior programming as well. So we try to hit everyone.
All right. And Mr. Chairman, to whoever can answer the question here, by turning by transforming the rec centers now into the trauma-informed neighborhood, I mean, what are the name of our rec center? To us, they're rec centers. So what should we be calling them?
Through the chair to the councilman, before our time, a decision was made that these would be referred to as neighborhood resource and recreation centers, which speaks to us expanding the services. So we're moving from just gym and swim to more comprehensive services to meet the needs of people in neighborhoods.
So should we still refer to them as resource and rec centers then? By adding the trauma-based stuff, we're not changing whatever it would be called now.
Through the chair to the councilman, the trauma-informed care is background information for you to understand the approach that we're taking. but what we are referring to the centers, they are neighborhood resource and recreation centers.
All right.
And we also just say the rec centers for short.
Right. So what we're doing here is increasing your budget amount from 1.8 to 2.6.
Through the chair to the councilman, it's not an increase in the budget amount. What you're doing is authorizing us to use the additional dollars that were already budgeted to cover the cost of these programs.
And Mr. Chairman, to our Assistant Director? Director.
I'm the chief for Youth
Chief.
and Family
Okay,
Success.
I'm sorry. Was this already budgeted in the PIOs? Where are you moving it from? I mean, I know it's in the budget for PIO, correct?
To our finance chief?
Through the chair to the councilman, this is coming from the line item in PIO's budget for contractual services.
Okay.
There was an ordinance presented in the spring that gave,
March.
in which council gave spend authority of about 1.8
Eight.
million for contracts that were
Okay.
ready to be awarded. And so now this is really an amendment of that prior ordinance to increase the spend authority from 1.8 to 2.6.
Okay, so back in March, for contractual services in your budget, it was set at 1.8, which we okayed, correct?
The budget was through the chair, the budget was 2.7 in
Okay.
the appropriation. There was a request to receive spend authority on 1.8 because there was an RFP.
And this is the
contracts
rest
were
of the-
ready,
okay.
And this is to seek spend authority for the balance.
Okay, just making sure. So it's under contractual services in the budget, correct? And it's already there. We're not moving additional monies from anywhere into the contractual services. It's already there.
Correct.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Casey. Councilman Kevin Conwell.
Thank you very, very much. I'm very, very happy about this program. To my colleagues, I think we need to push it more in our newsletters. I visit several recreation centers. I play chess with children.
Grab your mic.
As I said, I support this 100%. I'm totally in the middle of it, to the chair, to the chief. When I was pushing Play It Forward Cleveland, we collected instruments to give instruments to children, guitars, trumpets, drums. I think the council really, truly, that we should take more advantage of this and put it in our newsletters. I mean, I went to Cadell Recreation Center, and I remember this little girl told her mother, "Mommy, mommy, 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 mommy," said it 5 times. And she wanted to sign up for, the reason why she said that, because she wanted to sign up for the guitar classes at Cordell. And the mother was very excited about it. It was for free. And she said, and when I finish, I can get a free guitar. And that's what Arts Inspired Learning was doing. So we push sports. We push basketball. We push football. This program teaches character of self-discipline. When they're learning chess, and they're learning how to cook, they're learning the arts. It teaches the character of organizational skills. We need to take a closer look at this, and it's keeping the children off of the streets. A lot of times we focus on football, basketball, and baseball. That's cool too. I used to play those sports. But the arts here also, when it teaches them self-discipline, they will become better students in school as well. I think that we need to get the program booklets. We need to push it in our newsletters. It's all year round. This is all year round, not now, and it's starting to expand. The only thing that slowed it down a little bit to my colleagues was the pandemic. It's the only thing that slowed it down a little bit. And now you're seeing children from this program walking to and from school or whatever with musical instruments in their arms or using it as a backpack. That stuff is important, man. That's very important. Matter of fact, we also over, Jasmine doesn't have a rec center there.
Nor do I. Yeah.
No, you don't have one either. But we could work that out with you guys, and we could push the arts. I snatched some money from this program to bring over in your area with Lopez. You know, you remember Director Lopez. And now you see when I'm there, I see children in Santana's ward in their community with smiles on their faces, playing the guitar. And she'll tell you what kind of it's a Spanish guitar they're playing also. I don't know the name of it, but it sounds good. But they're over there playing. So I support this program 100%. I'm asking my colleagues to support it. but we need your help to get it out more. Councilmember Bishop, Jenny, Santana, and Carrie to put in your newsletters. We really need that, as well as Councilmember Anthony Harrison. Great program.
Thank you, Councilman. So, yeah, just Chief, so you've heard the call. Daryl, one of our members of our communications team, wave Daryl, is right there. So please, when you have content, we are more than happy to get it out, both virtually and in our written newsletters. So,
Thank you. We
Councilwoman
appreciate it.
Santana.
So really quick, hello, everyone. So through the chair, first of all, just one comment, and as Chief mentioned, Councilwoman House, myself, and the administration are working on a youth symposium for next year. So what I was thinking as I was looking through the list, through the chair, maybe to Chief, could we invite all these organizations to this, this conference, and then they could share all this information with the youth, because we are partnering with CMSD School. So that's one suggestion that I have. Another one, just on Conwell's comment, many of us don't have a rec center. So when I talk to my Lincoln West students, they're not going to the rec center. However, we do have local organizations that are doing the work, but are not getting any type of funding, right? I have City Life in the neighborhood, and when you stop by there any day during the week, there's about 80 kids that are there, and I know that they have College Now, and they have other organizations that come there, but they get nothing from the city. I'm curious to know, maybe not for this budget, but maybe upcoming budget, could we open this RFQ to other local non-organizations that are doing the work, have been doing the work, especially considering that many of us don't have a rec center in our neighborhood?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, you raised a really important point, and something that we've talked about is having a better understanding of what all the safe and third spaces are across all the neighborhoods. Because in some cases, there are no recreation centers. In some cases, there are additional spaces where kids and families feel more safe. And so what are ways in which we can work with council to figure out how to better expand the impact of these expanded programs? Thanks to Councilman Conwell, we've been able to do it by him securing specific funds and working with our office to move those funds to partners. So that is definitely already a path. But I think we should be thinking together about another path as it relates to expanding where we can reach our Cleveland residents.
Thank you, Chief. And just another suggestion, CMSD, when I grew up, CMSD school was open to 8 o'clock. I mean, that was our go-to place. Now I don't see much programming through CMSD. So we may want to think about that. Our local libraries now are becoming hubs of the neighborhood, and they already have programming there. So instead of having a student go to all these different organizations, why not get them and meet them where they're at? So I'll yield. Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you, Councilwoman. And I'm just going to build off one point, too. I mean, Chief, what have the conversations been with the school district? Because I will echo what Councilwoman Santana said. I mean, except I would express it a little differently. I think that they have been a terrible partner when it comes to out-of-school time programming. We have a Near West Recreation League on the Near West side because we don't have a rec center. We try to use basketball courts. The city, we built these new schools and these beautiful facilities. We were told no, because it was outside of the school day when a lot of the kids that we were serving and those programs were from that school, but we had a brick wall. And so what have the conversations with the school district to be, partner with rec centers or the city or these nonprofits? Have we dove into that yet?
To the chair, I would say now is probably a really good time to revisit with partners like that. The school district has been doing a lot as of late, particularly during the COVID pandemic, to increase what they refer to as 0 and 9th period, to provide some before and after school programming right in the buildings, and then of course the summer learning experience. And so I think now that they have that format fully planned out and that infrastructure built, it would probably be a good time to revisit that conversation.
I appreciate that, Chief, too. And I would just, again, layer in also to partner with organizations that are not directly programmed by them, because a lot of our neighborhoods, they do have nonprofits or faith-based organizations that do the programming and are looking for space. So as we go forward with that, but it always confused me. I used to run the rec league and I did community organizing, and I said, wait a second, didn't we pay for these buildings? These are public schools, and we couldn't get anywhere with them for them to let us use the gym for an hour. So, or they charge a lot of money. So we ended up having them in church basements and otherwise, but it just never made sense to me why the public schools were not more flexible to, anyways, I'll leave that there, but for a future conversation. Additional questions on 1204-2022, Councilwoman Spencer.
Thanks, Councilman McCormick. Just knowing that budget is going to be here before we know it, it's coming up fast. I think that some really important questions are being raised about, I actually feel like I have a good handle on the programming. We have the guides that come out seasonally, all of that. But through the chair to the chief, I think what I will need as a council member in going through the budget process together is really just a look at, so we know what all the classes are, how many kids or how many adults or who is signing up for each. And I think that, I know some of this is brand new and we're not going to have a lot of strong numbers on it yet. So I think it's going to have to be longitudinal to really understand. We're going to need at some point a sense of what's working and maybe what's not, right? Because these are some of these are existing contracts, others are going to be newly awarded. And then one more comment, and then I would just welcome your feedback on it. Again, what is clear is in the program guide, we can see what is offered at each center, all the breakdown, and different classes of different types offered at different centers, and presumably these new contracts would be spread across different locations. Some of the work of the PIO, I think I would benefit from understanding a breakdown at each center as well. You referenced, through the chair, you referenced the social workers. So I have one rec center or two in Ward 15, and then another close by, which is Cadell in Ward 11. And I'm not clear about the hours that the social workers are there. So just things like that. Just really needing to gel this upcoming budget cycle about what is the big picture of what's being offered, and then how do we begin to measure that impact. I think measuring the impact is something that is really, again, since so much of this is relatively new coming out of the pandemic, but we've really got to start doing that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, through the chair to the councilwoman, we agree around measuring the impact, and we're working right now with council and with administrative team members like my partner here to do things like get software and make that available to our social work team so that they can ensure that they're able to track and fully report what their impact is, who are the residents in your communities that they're working with, what kinds of issues they're working on. So we're working right now to secure that software to do that work. I would also mention that this is an office that has been not at full capacity. And so we're working really hard right now to get the right staffing structure in place and to hire the additional team members already budgeted for, so that we can make sure that residents are getting the full service that they can out of this great concept that still is going through some growing pains.
Great, and then, thank you. And then through the chair to the chief, of the contracts anticipated here or that we're authorizing with this legislation, is can you share a little bit more about the grief crisis response team?
Yes, through the chair to the councilwoman. I'm still getting used to that. We have found, and you all are seeing this is happening in your neighborhoods, that we have a number of violent crimes that are taking place in our communities, and they're leaving behind a lot of trauma in the neighborhood. And often our support specialists, because we have a small group that's spread across the city, they're not able to put concentrated focus on a neighborhood after a violent act or event. And so the whole goal of this grief crisis team is to take full advantage of the resources of the broader mental health professionals to help us in neighborhoods when they are actually in the middle of crisis. If any of us have lost someone that we love or been impacted by violent crime, we know that the grief also occurs in waves. And so the incident may have happened on a Sunday. You may get people immediately responding to that, or it may be months down the line. And we want to just make sure that we have some level of city support around those needs as they arise in the neighborhoods as well.
Thanks, and I think, through the chair, this is an example of something I think it would be very beneficial for council to understand it well and to be able to help translate. I think, we've all unfortunately had and continue to have loss and trauma in all of our neighborhoods that would benefit from this. I had one more question, and I think it left me, so I think I'll let it go with that. It came back to me. Final question through the chair to the chief is, do any of these new contracts impact, are the support specialists, is their staffing level now stabilized? In terms of the budget that has been allocated by this council for the support specialists who are in-house social workers, correct? Mm-hmm. Are we now fully staffed? Does this new piece increase their capacity, or is that at stability at this point?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, no, we are not fully staffed, and we are still working to hire additional social workers. It is a tough market for hiring, period. And so we're still looking to hire more social workers to bring that team. And honestly, the PIO office itself to full capacity. As far as this piece here, yes, it will give us more capacity in the city to address grief.
Thank you. Yeah, I was a little, at some point I would love to know, really, with the support specialists, which is different than the programming, are we getting to full impact? So anything that can be provided ahead of budget. Budget is such a busy time. There's so much information going back and forth. Anything that can be shared ahead of time about where we really are with any of that would be welcome. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Conwell.
You know what, to the chair, to the chief, looking down here where you have Diversity Center and the Rape Crisis Center, you have two places that I would love to see some kind of way we need to break into the Asian community. They're left out. And you also have the Spanish community, they're left out as well. And when, I visit you, we talk all the time, they gotta be in there. I mean, you gotta have inclusiveness with the Asian community and over there with Councilwoman Santana group, lovely group, and they need to be there. And let me say this, when I visit, and I have visited some of the sites, you guys are doing pre-testing and post-testing. So when the councilwoman asks you about it, you evaluating. You have an evaluation process, and you didn't mention that to the chair, to the chief.
Thank you, through the chair to the councilman. First of all, yes, in terms of diversity and equity, we want to make sure that the programs that we're making available do touch the wide range of community types that we have in our city. And I would just remind you, we already have some programming in place, and this is just our ability to spend down the additional dollars. So this is not even a full list of everything that the expanded program budget that you allowed for this year is covering. In terms of the evaluation process, as you all know, there was also a change with the evaluation office here on the administrative side. And so we, like many other offices, are working with that team to figure out what the evaluation needs to look like moving ahead for these particular programs. We are also doing some of our own new surveys in terms of participant feedback, which is something that we hadn't had the opportunity to do before. So thank you for raising that.
Yeah, I've seen you guys do it. So do me a favor through the chair to the chief. The next time you come back, you show this, but then you can footnote showing what you're doing in Asian Town, as well as what you're doing over there in the Spanish community as well. We need that, or the Latin community, because that needs to happen. Just show it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Conwell. Additional questions on 1204-2022? Hearing none, it stands approved. Please sign. Just on time.
All right. Next, we'll go to ordinance number 1143-2022 by council members Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance to amend section 1 of ordinance number 664-2022, passed August 10th, 2022, relating to authorizing the Director of Finance to apply for and accept a grant from the United States Department of Justice for a community-based violence prevention initiative, Cleveland Project Thrive program, and authorizing contracts and to supplement the ordinance by adding new section 5 relating to professional services and to renumber existing sections 5 and 6 to new sections 6 and 7. Ms. Pryor-Jones, Chief Abunama.
Yeah, you got it.
Thank you to the chair. This allows us to accept the local in-kind contributions for the Department of Justice $2 million grant for our program called Cleveland Thrive. So we are coming to council requesting that we will be given the authority to accept the $76,000 in funding, which is a part of the overall in-kind contribution for the grant we received from the Department of Justice.
Thank you, Chief. Other Chief, any comments? All right, so questions on 1143-2022 pertaining to Cleveland Project Thrive and our local match. Hearing none, ordinance 1143-2022 stands approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please sign. All right. Ordinance 1151-2022 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance to create the Division of Risk Management within the Department of Finance to supplement the codified ordinances by enacting new sections 12735 and 12736 relating to the new division and commissioner, and to amend sections 39 and 41 of ordinance number 194-2021 passed March 29th, 2021 as amended, relating to compensation for various classifications.
Through the chair to the council, I'll offer some brief comments and then turn the mic over to Ed Romero, who is currently the risk manager for the city and who would become the commissioner of risk management in the event that this ordinance passes. So as it presently stands, Ed is the risk manager. Up until a couple of months ago, he had one full-time staff who supported his efforts with respect to risk management in the city. And then we, as part of sort of rethinking the effectiveness of components of our risk mitigation strategies, we moved the contingent of safety medical unit staff from the Department of Human Resources into the Department of Finance to work directly with the risk management team. And that group focuses on preparing members of public safety who are injured, whether on or off duty, sort of on the job or not, to assess their readiness to return to full work and full health. Risk management is a key function of the finance department. Ed and his team does a tremendous amount of work with respect to our workers' comp efforts, our insurance management, claims management, and the like across the city. And so given the increased importance of risk management as our operations get riskier, as the world gets more complicated, it really felt that it was appropriate to elevate these functions to the level of a division within the Department of Finance and have the leader of that group be a commissioner. I would note that this move does not increase headcount in the budget. It simply putting the folks that we have within a new structure. And so the bottom line is the same here, really hoping to just make the work that we do more effective with this new structure. And so with that, I'll hand it over to Ed to offer some remarks he has, and then welcome to entertain any questions that the council has.
Good afternoon to all members of council, Finance Committee. When I was endeavored 15 and a half years ago by the previous administration to take over the workers' compensation role, the city historically had, 20 years ago, had 1,800 claims a year. I had 7 members of a staff, so a lot of the work that we did was because of the high volume. Well, we implemented new practices, we implemented safety training, we implemented accountability throughout the city. I can gladly tell you in the 15 and a half years, the last 15 years, we have 10 out of the 15 years, we've had historic lows. And when I say historic, not for that time period, but in the history of the city of Cleveland. So this year, we're on pace as of 9/30/22 to have another historic low, and we're going to be under 350 claims throughout the city. 1,800 in 2000 to 350 in 2022. But conversely, the staff has also gone away. So what I had in 7 people over the years, because we were able to mitigate a lot of these issues and make sure that our people are healthy and safe while employed by us, as a person left, through attrition, we did not get them replaced. And that was a cost savings effect that management felt they had to call it that day. But today, this administration has viewed this as we have an overarching obligation and ability to help citywide. And one of the largest things is to be able to protect city assets, make sure that we keep what we have in place, we have operational continuity, and that we're able to make sure that every employee goes home safe and sound, but it goes beyond that. So it'll be the operations maintained, that we have a plan to develop. I've been working with City Council the last 6 weeks in a security plan. I also work with Department of Public Safety in helping develop the security plan, not only for City Hall, but for outlying areas that we're going to take into in 23. So we have a lot of integration across the city. The Department of Public Utilities has their own safety staff. I have a dotted line relationship with them. They have one person at Port Control. I have a dotted line relationship with both those enterprise funds. So we're going to be able to coordinate this all under a risk management information system that we're looking at right now to have every department division, all 14 departments and soon to be 55 divisions, if you approve this, where we'll be able to sing on the same hymn book and also have transparent accountability. So we will be a metric-driven system. We'll be able to tell you exactly what we're doing, how we're doing it, and when we're doing it. And this is elevating what was just a basic workers' compensation mission to a broad, dynamic risk division.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Romero. And I just want to say this before we go on in the line of questioning. Mr. Romero is one of those city employees that I'm glad that everybody on Channel 20 gets to see, because I'm familiar with that work. I remember when we had a bunch of baseless claims, and what you and your team have been able to accomplish is one of those stories that may not sound sexy, may not be in the newspapers, but it really saved the city a lot of money. So I want to commend you and the administration for really right-sizing and structuring this. I don't have any other questions. Does anybody have any questions? Councilman Conwell.
I want to echo what you said to the chair. Romero, he's good. I remember some years back before, Mike Polensek and I, we were here, and we were having a fit about workers' compensation. And he looked around, you saw me in the hallway, you said, don't worry about it, Councilman. I'll be over it and I'll control it. And we'll do some risk, the whole 9 yards, and guess what? It went down. It went down. Every finance budget meeting, you were dropping it 10%, 20%. You were controlling it. You put programs to the chair. You put programs in place, because workers' compensation was killing us, man. It was just out of control. But remember, when you took over, you're controlling costs. You're helping us out with cost of labor. I'm very, 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 very happy. I want to echo what the council president just narrated to all of the council.
to the chair, to Councilor Conwell, and we continue the good fight. The state of Ohio is a monopolistic system, and so we are constantly
Look at you,
challenging them.
monopolistic.
They are a monopolistic system because you can't buy it. Ohio is one of 4 states where it's controlled by the state of Ohio. In other states, you can go and get to the open market and bid in for your policies.
Right.
We don't have that choice. So they mandate everything. They mandate all the rules. So, but we challenge them. We don't sit back and just accept what they give us. We challenge them on everything.
Thank you, Mr. Romero.
And you know what? You know, Mr. President, Romero, he's in his risk management, what he's doing. I watch you. You got a prevention programs is in there also, so you can do prevention. That's where you're controlling cost. I'm gonna have my eye on you on that.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. Councilman Brian Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the chief, nobody here is going to dispute the work that Ed does. Everybody knows that Ed does yeoman's work, and he saves the city a boatload of money through his work with the city. And thank you very much, Mr. Romero, for the work you do. However, to the chief, how much is this? We're creating a new division. So if we heard from Mr. Romero that because of his good work, claims have gone down, why the need to create the new division? And then how much is this new division going to cost, and where's the money coming from?
Chief.
Through the chair to the councilman. So I think what you heard from Ed was a description of the success that he's had with managing the workers' comp process and the claims history for the city. What we're looking to do with creating the division is really expand the portfolio of work handled by the risk management team which would be led by Ed. So it would include kind of coordinating all of the risk management efforts across the city. We are evaluating software systems to help do that in an electronic and efficient fashion. He also will be responsible for helping the various departments and divisions across the administration to develop policies and procedures for ensuring worker safety, enforcing those policies and procedures to, again, ensure worker safety, and then also taking other enterprise-wide efforts such as cybersecurity protection, whether that's through the form of insurance or some other efforts that we might undertake, working with our healthcare consultants to help manage costs there. I think really the portfolio of work will go far beyond only workers' comp. And so that's where we're repurposing the safety medical unit staff that was moved from public safety 2 or 3 years ago into HR, and now from HR into risk, so that they can expand their work as well from just focusing on return to work issues with respect to police, fire, and EMS employees, but doing that, but also thinking more broadly in terms of risk management for the city.
And then, Mr. Chairman, to the chief, so by creating the new division, does Mr. Romero's work expand? I mean, is this what you just described, is that not happening today and will happen with the development of a new division?
Yep. Through the chair to the councilman. So his work will absolutely expand. A lot of what I just went through is happening kind of in pockets across the administration, but given the nature of risk management and how it affects all of us, an accident in one group impacts the general fund the same. It really is something that should be handled at the enterprise level. And so creating the division and having it led by a commissioner really conveys the importance of this work, so that everyone across the organization appreciates the significance of it, and we can undertake it in a coordinated fashion.
All right, Mr. Chairman, thank you, but Mr. Chairman, to the chief, finances for it, right? We're just creating it in the summary. I don't see any dollar amounts for this new division.
Through the chair to the councilman, no new headcount is being created with this division. Right now, Ed and his staff sits in finance admin. So essentially what you'll see in next year's budget is the headcount and budget in finance admin will shrink, and there will be a new budget for the Division of Risk Management.
All right, Mr. Chairman, to the chief, then, I don't know, but I'm going to assume that Ed will become the commissioner then of this. I don't know if there's a difference in Ed's salary from his title now to commissioner, but you're not asking for any financial increase right now by creating the new division?
Through the chair to the councilman, no. I think, there will be likely a change in Ed's compensation with the change in title. The pay band for commissioner is broader than the pay band for risk manager, but that's a pay band, that's not a salary.
Right, but
just
that,
shows the room.
and Mr. Chairman to the chief, but that position does not currently exist in the budget. So where would we be getting that money from now until we pass the new budget with it in it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah, so through the chair to the councilman, yeah, I understand now. This organizational change, the sort of division of risk, won't exist until the new budget is passed.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, to the chief, Ed won't become the commissioner until the new budget is passed, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a yes, right? That's what I'm asking. So you're just asking now for the ability to create the new division, but those individuals won't be moved into that, and Ed won't become the commissioner if he's chosen, so luckily, we hope, to be the commissioner, until March of next year, whenever we pass the budget. Correct?
Through the chair, I believe that's the expectation.
What do you
yes.
believe? I mean, it's got, I mean, we're giving you, that's, so we're creating a new division right now, Mr. Chairman to the chief, without any dollars associated to it.
Through the chair, that's correct. So there is no appropriation available for the division of risk until a budget is adopted.
All right, that's what I
So the
wanted.
status quo, it'll be status quo.
Okay.
Which is currently the staff that will comprise the division of risk will remain in finance admin.
Okay. All right, thank you, chief. Thank you, Mr. Romero. Thanks, Chairman.
Yes, I do want to make sure that everybody does know that we do, most of the council members, we're going to lose a quorum in a minute because there is a commitment for a lot of council members, but Councilman Conwell?
Yeah, Chair to Chief, you already took a look at this risk management in other cities, is that correct, through the chair? And what was your cost that you came up with for something similar to this? Because this risk management in other cities like Pittsburgh and even in businesses, you got risk management. Through the chair to the chief.
Through the chair to the councilman, and Ed might be able to speak to this with a little more detail. We did look at other cities to get a sense of how they structure their risk management departments or divisions, sort of the scope of tasks that the risk management team is responsible for, and that is reflected in the ordinance in front of council right now. In terms of cost of certain risk mitigation tools or products, we haven't really gone down that path yet. Right now, we're focusing on the risk management software, which we have been getting demos from various firms that provide these kinds of services. But that's really the extent to which we've looked at other cities to gauge their experience.
You didn't make an assumption how much it would cost? I mean, you always look at a budget. I mean, you got to do an assumption analysis. So what is your assumption to the chair? What you think?
Well,
How much to set something like this up? I mean, you got to always look at budget.
Through the chair to the councilman, the division will have a budgeted headcount of
10.
10. And so if you just take the sort of average city employee costs about $90,000 to the city in terms of salary and benefits. So I think you could expect somewhere around a $900,000 personnel expense in the budget. What we'll be doing between now and when the budget is presented to council in the mayor's estimate by February 1st is taking a census of all of the contracts that other divisions have or other departments have that maybe should sit within the division of risk management, and we'll then cost out what an appropriation should be for 2023 to ensure that those contracts can transition to the division of risk and then be managed and maintained by the division of risk going forward.
So the assumption probably about $1.3 million, something like that with office, because you're looking at people, office, and supplies. So the money perhaps around $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. What you think, through the chair? I mean, we're doing an assumption.
Through the chair to the councilman, I think over $1 million for the operating budget is a fair assumption.
Over $1 million, and tell me anything. You over $1 million could be $2 million, $3 million, $4 million, $5 million. It's probably, you think, like $1 million, $2 million, $3 million in that ballpark. We're doing an assumption through the chair.
To the chair, to Councilor Conwell, I think it's more because if you look at, for example, right now, the insurance at Brown Stadium
Yes.
alone is, that's in Public Works,
Gotcha.
would be something that we would be the ones responsible for.
Oh.
So that cost alone would be in our budget. And, you know, there are insurance policies at the airport. That is one of the facilities that actually, due to FAA requirements, we must have auto liability insurance. That's the only place in the city that we have auto liability. We don't have that anywhere else. We're self-insured everywhere else. But we also have, you know, business continuity and liability insurance at the airport. So that's another package. Now, that's an enterprise fund, which is a little bit different. So they would still be responsible for their cost. But since Public Works is a general fund, that would be an item that we would be assuming within our budget. So that's an example of it. And so that cost, you know, this past year was pushing a little over $400,000. That alone for that cost of one-year policy.
So we see about $1 million, $3 million for something like that, because it's not going to cost more than the cost of labor. If the cost of labor $900,000. All right. Because cost of labor, you're looking at insurance, you're looking at overtime, you're looking at all that. You got $900,000. You know, almost any budget, the cost of labor is more than equipment and supplies and those things. So about a million. I'm just trying to get to what we're looking at in dollars.
To the chair, to the counselor, please make sure we include too training, because as the staff has to keep up with the training costs, so you got to really add that into it, because otherwise we're working off of antiquated theories and practices that aren't efficient for what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, training dollars, something else. To the chair.
Yeah, through the chair to the councilman, I think a general rule of thumb is in our budget, personnel accounts for about 75% of our expenses. So let's hypothetically say if we have $1 million of personnel expenses, we can anticipate on average the overall budget being just under 1.3 million. But I think in this case, because we know we have particular high dollar contracts, the insurance at Brown Stadium,
I got you.
That modifies that number. It sort of deviates from the average, but the average holds pretty consistent across the organization.
So how many dollars, how much money you think, an assumption that you'll save, short run, long run? Short run, we do the startup cost. Long run, by the third quarter, at the end of the year, you're looking at what?
To the council chair, to the counselor, so to give you an example, in the 15 and a half years that I've been responsible for the Workers' Comp Fund here at the city and its administration, we've saved over $120 million. So I just want to let you know that, you know, we're going to take that same mindset, and that's why we've been successful. That's why we dropped from 1,800 claims to a little bit to around 350. And you know, we've lost staff to do that, but now we're enhancing because our responsibility is greater now. We have an overarching, it's just not workers' comp anymore. We're still going to pay close attention to it, but at the same time, we're doing a lot of other things that had not had the same level of attention that was given in the past.
You're going to take that culture with you to risk management. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes.
Oh, that's a good culture. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Seeing no more questions, ordinance number 1151-2022 stands approved. Thank you so much again, Mr. Romero. And once again, I do want to make sure I let council members know that a lot of council members have a commitment that they'll be going to in a few. I always want to make sure we acknowledge all council members, but please be succinct with your line of questioning. Next one is ordinance number 1210-2022 by Councilmember Griffin, by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance to pay as moral claims the sums opposite the names of claimants. Director, Chief.
Through the chair to the council members, For ordinance 1210, 2022, we have 4 moral claims that were approved by the Moral Claims Commission, and we seek your approval in the total dollar amount of $4,527.26 to pay the claims that were adjudicated in favor of the claimant at the commission's hearing.
Thank you. Seeing no questions, ordinance number 1210-2022 stands approved.
Mr. President.
Oh, Councilman Hairston.
Thank you. This is a. So I'm looking at the list to the president, to the chief. Sorry, to the chief, and I see one is for police, and then the other is for. It says street. What does that mean? Is that just division of streets?
I can clarify if you want to, because I actually sat on the Morals Claim Committee. These are like when anybody hits a pothole or something like that.
Oh, that's the streets, okay.
Yeah, and then basically somebody put in for a repair because they actually had a tire repair that they had to make for a pothole.
And then I see 2 for vacant lots, and actually Marva Clemens is in my area.
And those councilmen were in place because they were trees that were on city property that fell into private property and damaged
Those were the trees,
fences and
okay.
other homes.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure because I know that I've heard a lot from a particular individual because that was in fact a tree. Thank you for that. And last, what I'll say to the chief and to you, Mr. President, typically when there's water main breaks and other breaks, I've been told that we don't pay for those type of issues, which I think that we really need to look closer at. And I get that, I've been told, well, council, that'll cost us millions and millions of dollars. However, if we know that our equipment or our water lines, whatever, are old and outdated and could potentially cause problems, then, that, how do you consider that an act of God, first and foremost, right? I can tell you I have a street on Haldane off of Euclid Avenue, where the water main broke 5 times within 3 years. So that is beyond we have a small problem on the street. That is a known problem, a problem that has existed for several years. But we tell these seniors and these low-income individuals who live on the street, right? They said, the council, I don't have the money. My income is not much. And I had to pay to get my basement cleaned out. I had to pay to have a furnace put in, right? Some are still living through the nightmares that they experienced there over a couple years ago. And do we deny them and not want to pay their claim? To me, I think that's insane. I don't get it. That we throw our hands up and we leave these residents to fend for themselves. I can see whether it was one break and, it was a really cold weather outside and something happened, that's the difference. But again, when you have a street that has experienced these issues on multiple occasions and we just say no, how dare us? I mean, I get, not opening the door and then we're on the hook to pay for many more claims like that. But, there's some situations that I think that the city needs to, give some deference to, depending on what has occurred there over a period of time. And I think that is one of the case I'm narrating is one of those cases that, we should really take care of these individuals. It is truly, burdensome, for these residents and particularly these seniors who are faced with these issues. I've written law, I've written the water department, of others, and I just hope that we don't continue this practice of not paying these individuals who've experienced these issues on multiple occasions, and especially when the city says, right, the division says, the reason we had the backup because the water main broke and the sewers couldn't handle the overflow, which backed up into the residents' basement. We took ownership of it was our problem, but still turned around and did not support these residents. And so I'm telling them the truth. Hey, city said no. They said it's on you, right? If I made that decision, I'd have paid them the next day. But however, I don't make that decision. So I just wanted to offer that information, Mr. President, and to the chief. We need to figure out a way to support residents like those on Haldane who've experienced these type of issues. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, Mr. Harrison. Let's make sure we take a deeper dive now. I want to understand a little bit more about that, and I do hear from Councilwoman Santana and others that is an issue we need to think about. Thank you so much. Thank you. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1210-2022 stands approved. Now we move to ordinance number 860-2022 by Councilmembers McCormick, Bishop, Hairston, and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance to amend Section 3 of ordinance number 1052-2021 passed December 6, 2021 relating to the transfer and sale of property to 2260 West 14th Street, LLC, or its designee for Phase 2 of the Tremont Oaks apartment project. Director.
Mr. Chairman, so the original legislation regarded the sale of land to from both the city and ODOT to a developer for the Tremont Oaks Phase 2 project, which is on West 14th Street in Tremont at Fairfield Avenue. I made a mistake when I drafted that original ordinance last year. And the reason is because there's two different parcels being transferred. The original was just the ODOT parcel, and it was appraised at $17,650. And we asked that appraiser to go back and also appraise the city property. They came back with a total value of $40,000, and I marked it down as $40,000 just for the city property. So really, in essence, it's the $17,650, which is the value of the ODOT parcel, and $22,350 for the city parcel, which total is $40,000. So this corrects an error. It goes to the originally appraised values for those properties, and it will allow the project to move forward.
Thank you so much. I don't see any questions. Seeing no questions, ordinance number 860-2022 stands approved. Next is ordinance 997-2022 by Council Members Bishop, Hairston, and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance to vacate all of Gladys Avenue, 42 feet wide, extending from the east line of East 45th Street, 60 feet wide, to west line of East 47th Street, 60 feet wide. Chief Director.
Mr. Chairman, so this is vacating Gladys Avenue between East 45th Street and East 47th Street, which is just north of Superior Avenue. The reason is because Cleveland or CHN Housing Partners owns all of the adjacent parcels, and they have received funding to construct a 15-unit supportive housing project referred to as Cuyahoga TAY. The TAY stands for Transition Aged Youth, which means youth aged 18 to 24 that are experiencing homelessness. So CHN, as the owner of all the abutting property, wishes to vacate this street so that they can construct the housing project where the street is currently located.
Okay, thank you. And do you have Councilwoman House's approval for this?
This is Councilman Hairston's.
Councilman Hairston,
Yes.
do they have your approval for this?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. This has passed municipal services and properties and DPS. Seeing no questions, ordinance number 997-2022 stands approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please sign on, everyone. Ordinance number 1120-2022 by Councilmembers Bishop and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the directors of Public Works and Finance to contract with one or more temporary employment agencies to provide professional services to supply temporary and seasonal personnel for Department of Public Works and the Project Clean program for the various departments of the city for a period of up to 1 year. Director and Chief. Welcome, Director Williams. Welcome, Director Williams. And Director Laird, how you guys doing?
Good, how are you, sir?
All right. Director Laird, are you going to start us off while we're waiting for the chief to come to the table?
Well, no.
Trying to move us along.
Sure. Got it.
Chief, welcome.
Good morning. Good
Please
afternoon.
proceed.
This is from
1120-22.
Righty. Good afternoon, Chairman. To the Chairman, to the Councilman, authorizing the Directors of Public Works and Finance to employ one or more temporary employment agencies to provide professional services to supply temporary and seasonal personnel for the Department of Public Works. This is a customary legislation that we've done before. We utilize this for our vacant properties, vacant structures program. And I have Assistant Director Laird here for any questions or comments.
Okay, thank you. And I do have Councilman Bishop. This was heard in Municipal Services. Do you have any follow-up?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, we fully support this piece of legislation. This is an important piece of legislation that we want to see moved forward.
Thank you. I have Councilman Polensek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my old colleagues, and to the director. My question is this. I had thought the administration was looking at the possibility of going in a different direction with regard to lot maintenance, grass cutting, the possibility of utilizing local contractors versus going with this program, which it seems that we've had problems with every year in getting the grass cut. And I know that that's all of us around here who especially have a good number of vacant lots every year have to contend with the issue of getting in there, cutting the grass, and the opening of the season, and then ongoing maintenance. So just briefly, Mr. Chairman, I know this was discussed in committee, but I mean, we're just going to continue this, what we've been doing in the past?
Chief?
Through the chair to the councilman, nothing has changed from what we came to you before. This is in addition to the inventory of vacant properties is not going down. It's
Right.
actually increasing. So
Right.
we're looking at utilizing that contracted service along with this program to meet the needs. So this will be both. We're still looking because if we put all our eggs in the basket of contracting out and we don't get enough people bidding, then if we don't have this in place, we won't have any way to keep up.
So this is, again, Mr. Chairman, just briefly, this is, again, going with an agency to hire temps.
Through the chair to the councilman, that's correct.
Plus, you're looking at hiring of a outside contractor or contractors?
Contractors.
Okay.
Plural.
And at some point, you're going to come back to the committee and to council and explain that way prior to the grass growing, I'm hoping.
Through the chair to the councilman, that is correct. We plan,
Okay.
this is an off-season. As we're going into snow and ice control now, we'll be focusing more on this program for next season.
Okay, because obviously the number of lots are not diminishing, and if what we're hearing, we're trying to achieve additional demolition dollars to take out the remaining substandard and derelict structures, obviously the number of lots are going to increase, and the burden placed upon the department is going to increase as well. I just want to make sure that we're looking at everything we can to address this problem. And I know, and it's a burden that falls on you. Unfortunately, it falls on members of council and to the viewing public. You know, council didn't create this problem, nor did the administration create this problem. You know, this problem was created to a great extent by the banks and lenders and mortgage industry, and we're still trying to clean up the results of the 2006, 2008 mortgage disaster, a meltdown, which we've inherited. So again, it's a tremendous problem. It seems like, you know, we're dealing with it constantly, and especially now with abandoned trees on those lots as well. So again, I just hope we're going in the direction that we need you to go in. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilwoman Santana.
Just one point. Thank you, Councilman Pelezic. You reminded me of something. So one of the things through the chair to the chief with temps is that they're getting paid $12 an hour. And so I know that that's difficult for recruitment. Have they gone up on the wages?
From the chair to the council person, yes, the wage has increased. Now, again, that is a decision that's made by the contractor when they bid. So we don't influence that number, but when the last one that came back, the wages did increase. And so,
Through the chair, chief, do you know how much it's
yeah,
increased?
so I believe we're at $11 for those who don't have a driver's license and $12 for those who do have a driver's license.
Okay, through the chair. I think that was the hourly wage last year as well, so it hasn't increased. Okay, thank you.
Can you follow up, if you
Yes.
could, with Mr. Titron to give us the actual increase so that the council lady can have the right salary?
And
Okay?
just to be clear, we have a bill rate and we have a pay rate to the employee. And so I want to make sure that what you're asking for is the pay rate to the employee. Is that correct? From the, to the chair? Okay.
The reason I ask is when we get, every council member gets to recruit some residents for this programming. I mean, when you throw out $11, $12 an hour, and you're getting paid more in McDonald's, and they're just not, applying for these jobs. So I think there's a huge challenge with this program and recruiting, and until we address that, we're not going to get the staff that we need to cut those lots. So I yield.
Thank you so much, Council Lady. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1120-2022 stands approved. I'm going to start this ordinance off, and then I'm going to ask if my majority leader, Councilman Kerry McCormick, can take over the meeting. I do have a speaking engagement that I have to go and attend. Next one is ordinance number 1157-2022 by Council Members Bishop and Griffin. By departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Works to employ one or more consultants or one or more firms of consultants to provide professional services necessary to replace the existing fuel system and procure necessary hardware and software, and for related services to implement the replacement of the system for the Division of Motor Vehicle Maintenance, Department of Public Works. Chief and Mr. Brown.
Through the chair to the council persons, I have Commissioner Brown here from Motor Vehicle Maintenance to speak to this resolution.
To the chair, this is a resolution to upgrade our current fuel system, a citywide fuel system, which we manage. This is a system that manages the 26 fuel sites throughout the city in diesel and gasoline above ground and below ground storage tanks. So our current system is out of date. It operates off of analog phone lines, which are no longer supported. So we need to update it to a cellular-based system to be able to continue having the system be dependable.
Okay, thank you so much, Councilman Bishop. This was heard in Municipal Services Committee. Do you have any comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we vetted this in the committee this morning, and we fully support it.
Thank you so much. Seeing no questions, ordinance number 1157-2022 stands approved. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Last but not least is actually a council ordinance, but I do think it pertains to the Division of Motor Vehicle Maintenance, and this is actually proposed by Council Member House, and it is ordinance number 1222-2022 by Council Member House, an emergency ordinance to supplement the codified ordinances of the Cleveland, Ohio, 1996 by amending section 443.05 as amended by ordinance number 1510-2019 passed December 2nd, 2019 related to inspection prior to licensing vehicles. Do you guys have inspections before vehicles are licensed?
Do we have? Do not believe so.
Okay, so this ordinance is to put forth an ordinance to move to inspection prior to licensing.
This is LNA.
That's for tow truck.
Licenses and assessment.
License and assessment. Okay, so it's not you guys then. Okay, so this is for license and assessments. My apologies. I thought it was with you guys.
No worries.
Does anyone have any questions regarding ordinance number 1222? I know Councilwoman House is not here. She did mention this to me. This is pretty much perfunctory, but basically is saying that with the taxi cabs, I remember what we're talking about now, to actually have in place the taxi cabs to actually be inspected before they get licensing. Yeah, I tell you what, here's what I'm going to do with this one. Because Councilwoman House is not here, and because I don't see anyone here from Divisions of License and Assessments, I'm going to hold this one until we get more clarification on this from Councilwoman House. She did bring it to my attention, but we do also want to make sure that we have License and Assessments at the table, as well as Councilwoman House to make sure that she understands this. So I'm going to hold this until next week in order to be able to move this forward. Okay? Thank you so much. Seeing no other pieces of legislation, this committee, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is adjourned. See you at the next call of the meeting.